Hi, everyone. Welcome back from our incredible afternoon sessions. I'm so thrilled to introduce and chat with our next speaker, Kelly Belcher, who is the managing director at Silicon Valley Bank. I'll give a kind of full intro in a moment, but want to start by saying thank you to Silicon Valley Bank for your support for this event. And of course, Kelly, who is our very own board member at Venture for ClimateTech and really has been supporting us since launch. Kelly is the managing director for SVB and leads the Energy and Resources Innovation ERI team in Texas, Boston, and New York, where he's responsible for cultivating relationships with investors and management teams and for setting strategic vision for the bank's energy practice vertical. He's joining us today to discuss SVB's ClimateTech report, which recently came out. And I know several of us on our team got a chance to sit in on an amazing kind of overview event that they did a few weeks ago. And it is an in-depth report providing an overview of the impact of climate change, emerging climate technologies, and investment trends. Hi, Kelly. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hey Chante, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, excited to dive in. I know we only have a little bit of time, but I feel like enough for you to share some amazing insights with our audience.
Sure.
I'm going to start with a question about sort of the genesis of the report. What inspired you all? What was the purpose of bringing together folks on your team to release this report?
Yeah, so it's a good opportunity to chat because we're actually formally changing our name to the Climate Technology and Sustainability Team at SVB. It doesn't roll off the tongue, but it encompasses all that we do, and so I think that's a good way to answer your question. So the team at SVB started seeing more and more entrepreneurs coming to the market with technologies that were focused on climate impact, reducing carbon intensity, prohibiting climate change in a negative way. And other types of technologies that were just generally good for reducing emissions. And so we started paying attention to that. And then what happened after the fact was, interestingly enough, more and more capital started flowing into the space. So venture capitalists, private equity groups started seeing opportunity to deploy capital and perhaps both drive their internal mission, but also earn returns on their investments. So as we started seeing more of this, we've started noticing trends within this subsector of where the capital was flowing, the dollars flowing in, and specific types of technologies that were receiving the majority of the funding. So we decided to put the report together to kind of showcase our portfolio and some of the proprietary data that we have access to, and just give everyone out there a glimpse of what SVB sees with this massive portfolio of that's growing and will probably exceed around 500 clients by the end of the year. So all good things, and it was a good way just to showcase the work that our entrepreneurs that we work with are doing.
Yeah, it's super interesting to hear that sort of served or was kind of a precipice before we saw even more climate investment coming into the space. How did your team gather data, recognizing there was even more of an increase as you were pulling the report together?
Yeah, good question. So SVB is an interesting financial institution in that we bank entrepreneurs, but we also bank investors. So we can actually look at what funds are doing, how much capital they're raising, where that capital is being deployed. But then we also, which is where my team spends the majority of its time, we work with entrepreneurs who are bringing technologies to market. So we're very much at the intersection of investment dollars being raised and investment dollars being deployed. So we spent the majority of our time collecting internal data, which is proprietary, and then putting this report together based upon our own portfolio. So most of the statistics that you see were backed into by our own data. The valuation metrics are all from our combined portfolio, and even some of the exit statistics were all based upon live deals that we have at SVB. So the vast majority of it was driven internally, which is pretty cool, even though we can't talk about individual companies because of confidentiality, but to speak to them in a portfolio setting, you can show what each of these companies is doing from their trend lines. So that, all internal proprietary data. We did use PitchBook a little bit, but for the most part, it's all SVB driven.
Yeah, it's super exciting to hear that not surprising, right? But to hear that you all kind of have this amazing proprietary data you can tap into at any moment. And we've seen a lot of interest on the investor side to better understand that data as climate technologies are really starting to emerge and scale. What were some key findings from the report that you think our audience would be particularly interested in?
Yeah, it's hard to talk about the report without noticing some of the more staggering statistics, which are, the amount of capital being raised and the amount of capital flowing into the space. So if you're an entrepreneur that has a climate-driven technology business, it's pretty exciting to be alive and thriving now, because we're forecasting over $60 billion to be put to work in 2021 alone. And so the last time I checked, as of August, we were well on track to hit that number. So these businesses are getting funded mainly in seed and Series A stages. And the other side of the coin is, once that capital is deployed, there's no shortage of dry powder, because we're also forecasting around 50 billion to be raised to be deployed. So VC funds, private equity funds will probably get to that $50 billion number this year, which will allow them to deploy that next year. So basically got 2 years of well over $110 billion in funding to go into these companies. So I think that's probably, the first thing that I would call out. The second thing that I would call out is we spent a lot of time on our hype curve. So most people can recognize a hype curve. They've seen, we read them on LinkedIn, we read them in the news. Many publications put out these curves, but we were able to kind of take a holistic look at our portfolio and sort of map out where we think different types of businesses fit on the hype curve. So from innovation to enlightenment and sort of all of the points in between. And I think we did a pretty good job of showcasing where we think technologies with the most impact sort of fall on the curve and where they're at. And so, all of this is proprietary from the businesses that are live that we actually work with. And so I would challenge people to take a look at that curve and think about it. And I'm more than happy to debate over it. We've had some healthy debates over the summer with that curve. And then the last thing I would call out is, some of the economics around climate technologies. So all of us are mission driven at our core, but we do know that capital comes at a cost. So when you raise capital, most investors are looking for some sort of return. And I think the exciting part about being in this sector or this niche is that there have been some successful exits, which sort of paved the way for return valuations for companies. So if you're a seed stage business or raising your Series A, there's some pretty good data points out there for you to show that you can create a business that could potentially transact at some point in the future, while also doing good for the climate. So I think those are three crucial points of the report that I would call out and challenge people to take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, even though they're high level, I feel like they're all very insightful. So thank you for sharing that. Particularly the $50 billion number. It's wow. I know I've heard billions a lot lately, but it's really nice when you hear it from multiple sources that are obviously reliable. And I think it also connects with the conversation we had earlier with Jigger, who was essentially saying these are $1 trillion markets. We know that there's demand as well as supply. So this was incredible speaking with you. I know that people probably want to dive even more into the data and the amazing findings your team had through the report. Where can they find additional resources, access the report, stay in touch with you?
Yeah, if you want to do it over the web, so you can just Google SVB climate technology sustainability. It'll direct you straight to our website. I don't know who's making all those clicks happen for us in the background, but it's happening. So that's a pretty easy way. Secondly, you can reach out to me directly. I'm sure people can grab my email address from the For ClimateTech group, and also I'm readily available on LinkedIn as well. So happy to get it to you personally. And this will be a report that we do on an annual basis going forward. So there will be an opportunity to see kind of version 2.0 in Q2 of next year.
Amazing. Well, super exciting. I just dropped a link to the report actually in the chat for all our attendees. Obviously, you heard from Kelly about other ways to stay in touch with him. So please feel free to do that. We are going to break back out into our sessions, actually our final sessions of the event, which, wow, I'm like these 2 days really flew by. And then we're going to be joined by our managing director, Jackie, who you've already heard from to close us out for the event. So stay tuned, join the rest of those sessions. Thank you again, Kelly and Silicon Valley Bank, for your support.
Thanks, Chante. Appreciate it.
Bye.